Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Joining us right now, while he still can, Ezra Levin, a co-founder and co-executive director of Indivisible. And we laugh because it's gallows humor, as always.
Indeed.
And Ezra, nice to see you, my friend. And I hope this is not the end, but I will visit you whatever camp you're in. And I think as a Muslim, I'll be in. No, I used to think he was going to put us in camp, but then Qatar gave him an airplane. And I'm like, you know what? That might
You
have
might
brought
get on the
Muslims
airplane.
freedom, right?
Wow.
You have to
So it's
raise
just me
money.
alone. Who am I going to laugh with, Dean? I got to have someone to laugh with at the fascists.
Zoom. We'll Zoom.
Okay, great.
I can still join you by Zoom, but I'm not going to a camp. You understand? UAE gave $2 billion to his sons for their stablecoin fund. I mean, they've bought my freedom, the wealthy Muslims. So here I
Well,
am bad mouthing
lucky
Saudi every
you.
day. And
Lucky
the
you, Dean.
sorry, Ezra. So with that joking aside there, and folks, I'm only half kidding because I even joke in my comedy when I still do comedy about how Trump's even transactional in his bigotry. So you just give him the money, he won't demonize your group anymore. That's how it works. So, but let's talk about something very serious. You know, a Reuters article just came out that Trump is going after pro-democracy groups, which are ones that won't bend a knee to Donald Trump. And your
Right.
organization, Indivisible, was named in that. Share, obviously the concerns are very, very real, what we're living through. What's your reaction?
First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. We're one step from winning, Dean. That's my reaction to this. This
Good.
is so clearly directly from the authoritarian playbook. He is scared of one thing, and that is peaceful, organized people power. That is what he and every other authoritarian fears. And so it is no surprise to me that the same guy who instigated a violent attack on the Capitol, the same guy who, as one of his first acts as president this year, pardoned those violent insurrectionists, the same guy who just weeks ago, when asked about right-wing violence, said, I quote, I couldn't care less, is now coming after pro-democracy, peaceful protesters under the guise that they are supporting violence. Obviously, the accusation that we support violence is utter, complete bullshit. Anybody who has paid any attention to the organizing Indivisible has done over the last 8 years knows that. Go to any one of our meetings, attend any of our events, go to any of the protests. We do it out in the open. You can see what we look like and how we operate. I believe in nonviolence because I don't like violence. I also believe in nonviolence as a strategic principle. You do not take on an authoritarian regime with violence. You lose. They have more violence at their disposal than we do. We will lose if we engage in violence, and we push anybody out who entertains violence. The way we build mass people power is through nonviolent organizing. But Trump is scared of that. He's scared of that, and he is scared of what is shaping up to be the largest peaceful protest in modern American history 9 days from now, the No Kings Day 2 rally on October 18th. But he
Right.
can scream all he likes. He can lie all he likes. He can smear. He and Stephen Miller can run whatever operation they want to run. We're showing up for our First Amendment rights. We're not backing down.
And we'll talk more about the No Kings protests. And I really applaud your refusal to bend the knee. The goal right now by Donald Trump, as we both know, is he can't put everyone in jail, nor does he
That's
want
right.
to. In Putin's Russia, there's only about 1,500 political prisoners. That's enough to deter others and
Yes,
so-called
that's exactly
self-censorship.
right.
So his goal is when he went after Act Blue, it should have been people should have went ballistic, and they kind of took it in stride. I'm like, why are people not talking about him targeting Act Blue, which is a platform to raise money for Democrats? I'm like, no one cares. And if there's no pushback, then the next thing is now months later, it's your organizations. It'll be move on. I haven't read the Reuters article in full. I read the top of it before we started, but I can go through the list of organizations that have been on my show, Cap and all of
Absolutely.
them, one after the other. He'll go after every one of them.
Look, he's a weak bully. These are not the actions of a strong leader who is secure in his power. He knows what he's doing and is unpopular. He knows his popularity is sinking. He knows the American people don't support invading and occupying American cities and terrorizing American communities with a secret police force. He gets that. What he is doing is trying to ramp up his attack on civil society as quickly as possible before he loses his grip on power. That is so blindingly obvious, and it's also blindingly obvious how you respond to this. If you give an inch, he will go a mile. The way you stand up to a bully is say no. These are our rights. We are standing up for them. If you do not exercise your rights when they're under attack, you don't have those rights. He's not going to give them to you. Every instance of success that we've had over the last 11 months with this regime has come because we unified and pushed back, and then he backed down. That's what we're doing now.
So when you see Donald Trump, he signs an executive order designating Antifa, which really isn't a defined organization, and nor does he actually have the federal power to name them a domestic terrorist group because there is no federal law to do that. But yesterday they had a press conference, Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem.
Sure.
You're talking about we're going to go after these Antifa people like we went after cartels, which I mean blows them up, go after their funding and their source. I'm like, but there is no Antifa. And now it really is going after organizations like yours. I take it. Is that your sense as well?
Yeah, so here's a couple things we need to understand about Donald Trump. One, he's an idiot. He doesn't understand what's happening in the world. He doesn't even understand what's happening on the ground. He was surprised about what was happening in Portland. It was reported that he was like, "Am I watching something that's not actually what's happening?" He is detached from reality. And two, he's a showman. That's fundamentally what he is. He is a showman. So when he says he's going after Antifa, that doesn't mean anything more than him yelling to the clouds or tweeting something or posting on Truth Social. It's not a meaningful statement because, to your point, there's no Antifa nonprofit out there. There's no Antifa organization. That's just him yelling, "I'm going to go after my political opponents, and I'm going to call this quote unquote Antifa." Where the rubber hits the road, though, is when he uses the tools of the executive branch to go after his political opponents. And that's not some prospective thing that he might do. He's doing it now. What he is
Mhm.
announcing to the world in his garbled way is he's ramping up those attacks going forward.
Yeah, and I remember when JD Vance, after Charlie Kirk was killed, said, "We're going to go after the organization that fund the Nation publication." And he said the Ford Foundation, which really has no connection, and Soros. And I'm like, but to me, that was deeply alarming. I'm like, where's this guy going? Like, I was deeply alarmed by JD Vance. And I've always been concerned, but there was a side to him I had not seen. So I wonder what they do if they begin subpoenaing records, if they have DOJ. Look, they've used DOJ to go after so-called DEI programs, but they've done it after everything. They to intimidate organizations so that you back down, that you guys are quiet. And I know you're not going to do that, but that seems to be the playbook, right? I mean, no crime,
Absolutely.
you can't charge somebody.
That's right. Look, they're trying to bully us into submission, and a couple things they don't understand. We're very stubborn people, is
Good.
one, and the second is I am not the leader of the Indivisible movement. Leah, my spouse, our co-executive director, is not the leader of the Indivisible movement. Indivisible is made up of thousands of local leaders in every single congressional district, every state, multiple countries, who own and operate and lead their groups. If they come after us, okay, there are two fewer people who are directly talking to you, Dean, and there are 2,500 other leaders who are talking to you and organizing on the ground. You can't stop the people, as you said. You can't go after every single person who is against the regime, which is why our strength comes from banding together and engaging in this organizing work on the ground peacefully but forcefully in defense of our rights. So I think they're losing. I think they're desperate. These are, again, not the acts of a regime that is secure in its power. They are worried about where things are headed. They're going to lose the shutdown fight. They're going to lose elections in California and Virginia and New Jersey and Pennsylvania in just a few weeks. And they're facing the largest midterm margins in the history of the Republic next year, which means what they are doing now is trying to prep to subvert the results of that election because they are desperate to avoid any kind of accountability that would come from them losing a national election.
And your point, if people like when Ezra's saying like this regime is weak, and we're like, but look what they're doing. Weak regimes have to do this. I
Yes.
had on Marshall Dursis, who wrote a great book, How Tyrants Fall. It was written
Yeah.
in 2022, but in that book, and he cites other books that talk about that. The more repressive the regime is getting, it's because they're weaker. When they
That's
are all powerful, truly at their apex of strength, people either like them, actually do like them, and they're happy with it, or there's enough fear that everyone's like, okay, we're not doing anything, right? It's so the little things is targeted repression is the first
yeah.
step. When they
Yeah.
do broad-based repression, like military in the street, that's even a sign of even more weakness because the result is a pushback, and
Yeah.
there's more opposition to that. So that's where we are. You're absolutely 100% right.
You're characterizing it right here, Dean, too. And this the way that I think about this is, look, our enemy right now is not Donald Trump. It's not this regime. It's not weak-kneed Democrats who refuse to stand up. That there are our opponents. All those folks are our opponents from time to time. Our enemy is much more dangerous. Our enemy is cynicism and nihilism and fatalism. The sense that we can do nothing. He is all powerful. Why should we even
Mhm.
try? That's how authoritarians actually win. So successful movements against authoritarianism judge their success not by is the regime doing damage or not. Of course the regime is doing damage. Of course the regime is doing worse things every day. It is going to get worse before it gets better. But a successful anti-authoritarian movement judges its success this way. One, are you bigger than you were before? Two, are you more unified than you were before? Three, are your tactics proliferating? Are you doing different stuff than you were before? And four, is the regime less popular than it was before? Every single month over the last 9 months, I could answer yes, 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 yes. We are getting stronger and more unified and doing more things, and he is getting less popular. He is on the way out, y'all. We just have to keep on building.
But if you watch corporate media, you would have no sense that a Reuters poll came out yesterday where he has a 40% approval rating, and that his approval ratings are going down over and over. And the strongly disapprove is almost 2 to 1 over strongly approve.
Yeah.
And America's on the right track. 38, 39% think we're on the right track. Even some are lower. If you watch corporate media, he's omnipotent. He is everywhere. He's all powerful. They make him, he is wall to wall coverage. And part of it is that's how bad corporate media is, that they are either some are on board completely or some of the executives don't want to upset him. Just interviewed Jim Acosta yesterday, who said that they're paralyzed by fear now, the corporate executives, or some just want the tax cuts and they're on board with his agenda.
There is no institution that's capitulated more over the course of the last 11 months than corporate media.
Yeah.
Institution after institution has fallen either in the face of direct threats or out of fear that the threats might be coming. This concept of obeying advance that we learned from Timothy Snyder years ago, they are exhibit A of obeying in advance again and again and again. What I would say is that these institutions and their leaders are cowards, and we can deal with cowards. We showed how we deal with cowards when ABC News and Disney
Mhm.
kicked Kimmel off the air. They are cowards in response to that threat. They also don't want pressure from all of us. So the next time an institution or a leader, in response to a threat from the regime, immediately capitulates, it's on us to provide that countervailing force, to organize and say, whoa, 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 you're going to kick a comedian off the air for making jokes about this regime? No, 1.5 million of us are going to cancel our subscriptions. We're going to be out in front of ABC headquarters and locals. We're going to be out in front of Disney protesting. And those leaders see that and say, oh no, I don't want to be a pariah at my next cocktail hour. I want to be able to show up among my
Right.
friends. I don't want to be the bad guy here. And they'll move. Not every target will, but enough of them. We've got to do that, though, because in the absence of that people power, they're absolutely going to cave in response to pressure from the regime.
They don't want to be the Alan Dershowitz of their event
Yeah,
where
that's
he
exactly
whines
right.
about going to Martha's Vineyard and no one invites me to cocktail parties anymore. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, you're really going on TV and telling us this? And he says it all the time. He just whines about it.
That's reality. Look, remember, these leaders they're human beings that exist in society as well. And many
Right,
of
right.
them write books on leadership and appear in symposiums talking about how they've led their companies. They want to be respected and they think they're doing the smart play. And let me tell you, in the absence of organized power on the
Mhm.
ground, that is the smart play. If
Right.
we don't make it clear to them that this moment that we're living in is temporary and that we're going to move on to a post-Trump era that's defined by accountability and reform, and their reputation in the long term is going to be affected by their actions now, they absolutely should capitulate. They should move in response to Trump. So it's on us. It's all well and good to point at them as villains or to point at weak leaders and say we're disappointed with them, but what are we doing about it? This is not just about us having the right opinions, Dean. We've got to have a bias towards action. We've got to take this into our own hands and start organizing.
I like bias towards action. And the point you make is something I made in the show. A lot of the corporations didn't see a downside to submitting to Trump,
Yes.
only a potential upside. But
Yes.
ABC Disney showed the nation there is a downside, and we're going to
That's
do
right.
that. We're going to use our wallet. So you also mentioned one of your metrics of success here is more activism on our side. So what
Yeah.
can you share? We talked a couple months ago. What have you seen over the last few months in terms of people joining Indivisible chapters, starting chapters, getting involved?
Dean, can I just say it's overwhelming and it continues to be overwhelming. It's been overwhelming for 11 months. It still is the case that we have about 5 new indivisible groups every single day joining the movement. Every single day. I
Wow.
just looked it up yesterday. I think it's in Pennsylvania, Hatboro, Pennsylvania. I had never heard of it. Small town of 8,000 people. Welcome, Patsy, the new leader of Indivisible Hatboro. These folks are starting their groups in small towns, in rural areas, in red states, in blue states, in purple states. We have more than doubled the number of indivisible groups since the start of the year. We've more than quadrupled our membership since the start of the year. And this is resulting in actual real world actions. Some historic comparison. The biggest single day protest of the entire first Trump term came in 2018. It was Families Belong Together in opposition to family separation. It was roughly the same size as the Women's March, around
Oh.
750 events. It was incredible. It was impactful. It forced Trump to reverse some of his policies, not all of them, but some of them on family separation. And that was 750 events. Hands Off in April had 1,300 events and 3 million people, nearly doubling the biggest protest of
Hmm.
the first Trump term. We then doubled Hands Off. We doubled Hands Off for No King's Day in June. We had 2,169 events across 27 countries in every congressional district, every one of the 50 states, and DC, and Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, and Guam. We were everywhere. Now, No King's Day 2 is coming up in just a little over a week. It is on
Right.
October 18th. I can tell you now, right now, Dean, there are more events and more registrations for No Kings 2 than there were for No Kings 1, which means I can say with confidence October 18th will be the largest peaceful protest in modern American history. We are growing, we are more unified, we are diversifying our tactics, and this guy's approvals are on the way down.
So, what do you think they do in response to this? Because now we are really at a point where they're not going to sit back and watch these protests. Are they going to try to have agitators come in? Do you think they're going to do anything, or do you think they're going to sit back and just do their little functioning and trying to dry up money and that kind of things that they're doing behind the scenes?
So there's been a lot of bluster on their side for
Hmm.
this entire year. This Reuters article that came out just today shows what they're planning to do. It is no accident. It is no accident that this announcement of a crackdown on peaceful pro-democracy organizers is coming a week before one of the largest protests in American history. They are trying to persuade people to quiet up, to
Hmm.
stay home, and to not express their political opinions. And here's what they don't understand. Americans don't like being told to shut up and sit down. I think
Right.
this is going to have the exact opposite effect that they want. As they try to crack down on those of us organizing peaceful protests, people who might have otherwise been on the sidelines will see that and say, that is screwed up. I don't know about being an activist. I don't consider myself a community leader, but I'll be damned if I'm going to let some would-be king tell me what to do. I think these numbers are going to skyrocket. I think we're going to see a huge number of people stand up because if there's one lesson we've learned over the last 11 months, it's that courage is contagious.
Yeah, and also, Ezra, I really don't think this might sound like political hyperbolic or like talk show stuff. This is my truth. Donald Trump doesn't know what it means to be an American, and that
Mm.
might seem jarring to people. That's the truth. He does not subscribe to the idea of the struggle of what our values are. He's rejected them. The guy tried to attempt a coup. He tried to overturn an election, all that kind of stuff. And what I think he really misses, Ezra, is that in our DNA, we rebel against kings.
Yeah.
That's the story told from being a child in school in America
Yeah.
about the colonists. Is this plucky group of people got together and one by land and two by sea, and a king? You're not going to tell us what to do without representation. We're going to stand up to you. That's in our DNA as Americans. Every child in this country is taught that story, and I don't think he gets. I really don't think he gets that.
I 1,000% agree. I think he's underestimating the American people right now. I think he's underestimating how much people value their independence, their democracy, their constitutional rights. And I don't think he's got the power to stop us. I do not think he does. I think there are too many people who do not like what this regime is doing and will stand up and peacefully but forcefully force him to back down.
But we need more people than ever at No Kings. And we'll get back to No Kings in a second. I want to get your reaction, though, on one other thing. You mentioned the shutdown, that Democrats, you believe Democrats are going to win. What do you think of, we've talked about our chagrin or frustration with Democratic leaders and messaging. I'll tell you,
Indeed.
they stayed on message on this one. Everybody knows if you follow this, not everyone follow. If you follow this, you know Democrats are about trying to get the subsidies for the ACA so people keep their health insurance. Pretty clean message. And they've kind of stayed on it. And Republicans, I don't even know what they're on because this is an 80-20 issue in the wrong way for them. They're usually on the 80-20 side, right?
Yeah.
Polls show almost 80% of Americans want the subsidies to continue, including nearly 60% of Republicans. So what do you think how Democrats have done on this?
It's even worse than that for them, Dean. 57% of MAGA Republicans support the Democratic position of extending the ACA, the Affordable
Right.
Care Act subsidies. It is just, they are floundering. The Republicans are floundering. And look, I'm okay being right early. Indivisible has been calling for a fight back faction of the Democratic Party to actually push back and use the leverage for the last 11 months. 6 months ago, Schumer led the surrender, did not even attempt to fight. The reason why we see a difference now in Democratic posture, I fully believe, is because of we had hands off, we had May Day protests, we had no kings, we had the John Lewis Remembrance Day, Good Trouble Lives On, we had Labor Day, and now we have the prospect of no kings too. A new talking point just rolled out from the Republican side that the only reason why Democrats are fighting back now is because they're worried about no King's Day on October 18th. To which I
Wow.
say, good, that's great. Isn't this amazing to see a party listen to the American people and say, we don't want to get on the wrong side of them? So, right now, what I would say, I know it's disorienting for people. I know it's not the norm, but we have something that kind of looks like a unified opposition party now, Dean. And so, as critical as I have been, and as much as I have pushed Schumer and Jeffries and the rest of them, right now, I am in cheerlead mode. Plan A is to win. I am backing up the play. We are cheerleading the Democrats who are fighting. Fetterman and King in Maine and Cortez Masto in Nevada, they've all caved. We can lose three. That's okay. We just
Right.
can't lose seven or eight. And so we are holding the line. There was just a fifth vote on the Republican bill today. We didn't lose any more Dems. So we are holding strong. To your point, the Dems are on message. My God, Schumer actually created a pretty good video on this. I'm shocked to say that, but it is. He created a pretty good video on this that punches above what I've seen from him before. I'm I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. I would vastly prefer to be cheerleading a unified opposition party than yelling at failed leaders who are not standing up and meeting the moment. But right now, y'all, we got a real shot to win this.
And do you think, though, the fact that they are fighting the way they are is because of all the yelling that people have done and people have
Without
called
a
the
doubt.
Democratic elected officials?
Dean, without a doubt, and here's what I would one of the frustrations about organizing a grassroots movement is no target of pressure in the history of grassroots organizing has ever come out and said, "I moved because of all the pressure." That never happens. They never admit it was what you were doing
Right,
that pushed them. But what is the
right.
difference between 6 months ago and now? It's a historic wave of grassroots energy, furious, not just at Trump's regime, but also at failed Democratic leadership that wants to roll over and play dead rather than fight back. What Schumer and Jeffries and other Dems understood going into this fight is that they could not just surrender again without fracturing the entire party. That rank and file Democrats were demanding them to fight back, and that they had a good way to do that. So I am 100% convinced in the absence of this kind of pressure, we would get more bipartisan agreements that would allow the Republicans to just keep on steamrolling the country. But because we've been pushing, we got a shot at actually fighting back and winning some real stuff.
So you think at the end of the day, I mean, you worked on the Hill a long time ago. I know now it's like I only know you in this iteration of Ezra. Do you think at the end of the day, Democrats might actually prevail on this, or Republicans give in, or at least make a deal where we're really going to have a vote, or should they not give in unless they get the actual agreement, the subsidies?
They shouldn't give in. It's an 80-20 issue, as you said.
Yeah,
But the devil is in the details because the demands for from the Democrats, as stated, are threefold. One, Medicaid restored. Two, ACA tax subsidies extended permanently. And three, rescission and impoundment language to prevent Donald Trump from treating the federal budget like his own personal piggy bank.
right.
All three of those things are the demand. All three of those things are widely popular. If we get a 1 year extension of the ACA tax credits, that is currently Marjorie Taylor Greene's position. She's moved in our direction, and I love it. The frontline Republicans would love a 1 year extension of the ACA tax credits. If that's what the Democrats announce is what they got, that's not a win. That's capitulation. That's giving the Republicans
Oh,
what they
okay.
want. But I don't think they have to settle for that. They have a very strong hand to play. They should not just fold it in response to just the breadcrumbs that Marjorie Taylor Greene might offer them.
And before we get back to wrap up with the No Kings thing, what else is Indivisible doing now? And what more, if people haven't joined, many call up and they're involved in Indivisible, but what's coming up after No Kings, and what can people do?
Well, here's the thing. I think that pressure on Congress, pressure on elected officials is all well and good. There's a lot of good you can do there, especially if you've got a member that has some leverage and that you have leverage over. But I don't think that's where this fight for democracy is only playing out. And we've seen this time and time again, and we've talking about it. Media institutions, universities, law firms, businesses, all of these pillars of democracy that should be standing up against the regime are being pressured. And if we aren't coming out in some kind of organized fashion to push back when an ABC News or a Disney capitulates, they're going to capitulate. So the place
Yeah.
where I think we're going is very productive for us to go after No Kings, after the shutdown, after the November elections that are coming up this November. I think we should be looking at rapid response to shore up those pillars of democracy. Good
Hmm.
example of this is Apple just cut out two apps from the App Store that helps normal everyday Americans track ICE and what they are doing in their communities. They've taken them off in response to pressure. Where's the countervailing force? Where is the Rotten Apple campaign? Where is there's an app for that campaign? Where are the protests outside of Apple stores? This is how we should be thinking. We should be providing countervailing pressure because these institutions are not used to it. They are just dealing with Trump and they're not factoring in what damage they are doing to their own brand and their own reputation by engaging in this way. I think we've got to organize it in an effective way from now until next election, and then we've absolutely got to crush them in the midterm elections next year.
Absolutely. So if people want to find out more, Ezra, about the October 18th, No Kings, where can they go to make sure they want to join in their own neighborhood, their own village, their own city, wherever they might be?
NoKings.org. There is probably one within 30 minutes or an hour of you. If there's not, get a few friends together, start your own No Kings protest, and
Hmm.
start recruiting for it. I guarantee you this is going to be an incredible, powerful, joyful, fun event. Show up, make some friends, save some democracy.
And indivisible.org, is it .org or
It
.com,
is
the website?
indeed.
.org.
Indivisible.org.
Ezra, keep up the good fight. We're here with you, and we're going to keep fighting. And I'll still communicate with you, even if you're in some kind of gulag somewhere. We'll
I
still
appreciate it.
we'll do the
Look
Zoom.
out.
Thanks, my
Look out for my carrier pigeons.
good luck, my friend. Have a great day.